There you go.
Now that we resolved our technical issues, we'd like to welcome you to the May 2nd Calaveras Council of Governments meeting. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Council? Public? Staff? Mr. Caldwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. If I could, I don't remember what item it was. Oh, it's item 1. The minutes of last month's meeting. Get that pulled, please.
Any other items?
I'll move the remainder of the item.
Second.
We have a motion to approve items 2, 3, and 4 on the consent agenda.
No, 2 and 3.
Items
4 is public comment.
No, 4 is correspondence.
First correspondence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So again, for clarification, we're having moved to approve items 2, 3, and 4 by Councilmember Tofanelli. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Unities. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Mr. Caldwell, your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to refer to the minutes of last month's meeting, item 9, unmet transit needs public hearing, it says. And in there, there was a comment in the minutes that said Ed Hall believes if schools were contacted and communication availability of the Gold Route was advertised more, it may have been and could be more successful. I was just talking with Mr. McGuire here that about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, when there was a young lady running the transit system for the county at that time, and her name was Jamie something, and he refreshed my memory, because I couldn't remember her name. But at any rate, I suggested to her that she contact the school district about having the kids ride the transit system instead of school buses. Because when I was public works director in Amador and the transit system was under my purview, 2/3 of our ridership were students. And they enjoyed it because they didn't have to wait as long. Some of them didn't have to wait as long for the school buses they otherwise would have. Some of them, I mentioned to Mr. Guire that some of them said they had to wait in the dark because they had to get out so early to stand beside the road. And I thought, this is a win-win. You go to the school district, they don't have to run the buses as much as they normally would, and you increase your ridership. Well, you have to be careful because there are some concerns there with competing with the school district. So you have to pick them up as if they were just standing on the corner just like everybody else. At any rate, I'm glad to see that somebody else has brought this up again, and I hope you do something about it now that you've got a new transit management arrangement here. And I'd like to see that further investigated for the reason I mentioned, that it seems to me to be a win-win. And I think the ridership then would increase on the transit system significantly. Thank you.
Is there any further comment regarding item number 1's accuracy as a minute item? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve item 1 as well? Moved by Councilmember Unities.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Herman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 5, public comment. Public comment is up to 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none. Item number 6. Item number 6 is the resolution fiscal year 1822 supporting Proposition 69, the transportation taxes and fees lockbox and appropriations limit exemption. Ms. Collins.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. This item is a resolution for your consideration to support Proposition 69 as it relates to SB 1 or Senate Bill 1. Support of this proposition has been recommended by the California Association of Council of Governments and has been acted on by many other regional agencies and other agencies such as the League of California Cities and the California Association of Counties. I've enlisted Mr. Vandenberg's help or assistance again for the discussion of SB1, and we have a presentation here for you to kind of go over an overview of SB1, how the impacts of Calaveras County right now, and then a little bit more on Prop 69 before you make a decision. And Steve?
Good evening. Okay. As Amber said, we're going to give you some background on SB1 before you decide whether or not to take any action on supporting or not supporting Proposition 69. Okay. In California, as we all know, we have an extensive transportation infrastructure system. On the state highways, 50,000 lane miles, 13,000 bridges, 205,000 culverts. Our local streets and roads in our 58 counties and 482 cities. We have 300,000 lane miles of roads, 12,000 bridges. There are 200 transit operators in California operating everything from buses, light rail, to commuter rail. Since really the mid-1990s, an extensive backlog of repairs has accumulated. It's estimated to be about $132 billion. The majority of that on the local road system, so more than half on local roads. After 2 years of negotiations, 2016-17, between the Senate, the Assembly, and the Governor, SB1 was enacted. It occurred in April of 2017. And it includes the first increase in gas taxes here in California since the mid-90s. The final package required a 2/3 vote in the legislature because it included tax increases, and it did receive, of course, the 2/3 required. SB1 will raise $5.2 billion a year from new taxes and fees. It does stabilize our transportation funding here in California. 50% of the funds that are raised will be used to improve state infrastructure. The other 50% will go to cities and counties for improvements on the local road system. It really has an emphasis on fix it first and running down that large backlog of deferred maintenance. It also includes funding to enhance trade corridors, for transit, for active transportation, that's bicycles and pedestrians, and again, to repair local roads. No funds that are raised from SB1 are going to go into the high-speed rail system. And there are various safeguards included in SB1, including a requirement and a creation of an Inspector General's position in Caltrans, which is appointed by the governor to make sure that the funds are spent effectively, efficiently, and transparently. So here's where the revenues will come from under SB1. First of all, fuel taxes on gasoline. There is an excise tax, a per gallon tax, that will be increased from 18 cents to 30 cents a gallon. That occurred last November. And then there's a price-based tax on gasoline that's going to increase in 2019. And these revenues are going to be phased in over the next 2 to 3 years. On diesel, there's also an excise tax that will go from 16 cents a gallon to 36 cents a gallon. And then there's a sales tax on diesel gas as well that'll increase from 1.75% to 5.75%. There's also vehicle taxes and fees, a transportation improvement fee on every vehicle. When you register your vehicle annually, you will now pay a transportation improvement fee of anywhere between $25 and $175, and that's based on the market value of your car. So if you have a very expensive car, you'll pay towards the high end. If you have a less expensive car, you'll pay towards the lower end, the $25 end. And then finally, there is a zero emission vehicle registration fee that is now being charged. It's $100 per year per vehicle. This is to make sure that cars like Teslas or Nissan Leafs that are 100% electric are actually now contributing towards maintaining our road system. Before, we just had a tax on gasoline. That's how we were generating money to pay for maintenance and improvements on the transportation system. If you drove an electric vehicle, you weren't paying anything towards the maintenance of the road system. Now you will pay $100 a year. How much will all of this cost to Californians? Well, the Department of Finance has estimated about $120. Again, these are going to be, some of these taxes and fees are phased in the upcoming years, but here in 2018, about $120 a year cost to Californians for these new taxes and fees. They estimate that for the transportation improvement fee, that's the fee on vehicles when you register a vehicle, that on average Californians will pay about $48 a year. And then in fuel costs, they did the math and they figure it will cost just a little under $70 a year in extra fuel taxes for Californians. Added together, about $117 or roughly $120 a year cost to Californians related to SB1. Because the taxes and fees are phased in over time, the way that they're normally explained in presentations like this is looking at the first 10-year period when all of the taxes and fees are then in effect, and what would the amount of revenues collected be? It'd be about $52 billion over the first 10 years. How would that be expended? Half of it's going to be spent on state infrastructure, and this is what are called the state programs under SB1. Funding will go to the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. That's Caltrans's backbone maintenance program. That will be augmented. A new trade quarters enhancement program has been created, and that will, as it says, fund moving markets, products that we produce here in California towards things like port facilities. So that program will benefit trade corridors. Solutions for congested corridors, as the name suggests, if there are congested corridors like Highway 99 through Modesto gets congested, these programs are targeted towards those types of congested corridors, main corridors in California. It can either be on the mainline facility or a parallel facility that is congested. It can be for roads, but it can also go, if you want to do commuter rail as an alternative to driving that congested corridor, you could apply for funding from that program. The trade corridors and the solutions for congested corridor programs are competitive programs, so they will do periodic calls for projects. And they just finished the first round of calls for projects for those two programs. The STIP program, State Transportation Improvement Program, the interregional share, this is the share that Caltrans makes decisions about how it will be spent. It will be augmented. There are freeway service patrol programs around the state, usually on the same congested corridors that remove broken down vehicles, get them out of the way so that traffic can continue flowing on those corridors. That will be augmented. Some money will go to the university system here in California for various research efforts. So they may be trying to develop new computer traffic models, for example. Something like that could be funded with a small amount of the funds that are raised. And then because this is a user tax, when people buy gasoline for all-terrain vehicles or boats or tractors, they're paying the tax as well. So some of the money goes back for infrastructure that benefits those modes of travel. The other half of the money generated will go to cities and counties. Money will flow by formula to local street and road maintenance and rehab. And there will be an augmentation of the active transportation program, which is a competitive program. So there was an active transportation program. There's just more money available now through calls for projects because of SB1. Local planning grants. That program has been expanded, and I believe you received one. We'll talk a little bit about it, that grant in a slide or two. But local agencies can apply for planning grants. The State Transportation Improvement Program, the regional share, this is the share where you make decisions over, the part that you make decisions over how it should be spent, and you've been putting your money into the Wagon Trail project. That is augmented as well, so there's more money that will flow to the State Transportation Improvement Program. And then there is a local partnership program created. This is a matching program. If you have a transportation sales tax, you can apply and get a match, dollar for dollar, out of this program. If you have a traffic impact fee, you can also apply and get a dollar for dollar or better match out of this program. The smaller your traffic impact fee program is, the larger the match you're eligible to receive. So the city has a small impact fee program. I think it generates $80,000 to $90,000 a year, maybe. The county's program is much bigger. You're eligible for matches. If you put money into a project, your RIM fee into a project, you can apply to this program and double your money or better through this program. So that's available, again, to transportation sales tax programs as well as impact fee programs that are imposed by policy bodies like the city council or board of supervisors. And then money will flow to transit for transit operations and capital improvements as well. To date, we've got part of fiscal year 17-18 and upcoming 18-19. These are the funds that have been received by the City of Angels Camp and the county so far. By formula, the county about $3 million. The city, $91,000. Money's also come by formula for your transit system, $122,000. And there's the planning grant that I mentioned. You received a planning grant. These are, again, SB1 has augmented the planning grant program. You received $549,000. You received active transportation program grant of $1.9 million for your SR 49 gap fill sidewalk project. That program, again, is augmented by SB1. And then the Caltrans SHOP program I mentioned is being augmented by SB1. So there's a $605,000 improvement coming to the bridge over Cherokee Creek. These are specifically the projects in the city and the county that have been designated so far to receive the SB1 funds that are coming by formula to the city and county. The Board of Supervisors has approved these projects as well as the city, but you can see these are chip seal projects, reconstruction projects, repaving projects, replacing culverts, etc. And so that's also in your staff report, that very same table, to give you a feel for the scale of the projects that will be funded and delivered here in Calaveras County by SB1. So projects are underway. Again, this is new. It's going into effect. Not all new taxes and fees are being collected, but yet projects are already underway across California, filling potholes, repaving, resurfacing, improving bridges, reducing congestion, various other safety improvements. Projects are going on in every community. 4,000 plus projects have already been itemized. That's one of the requirements of SB1. You have to actually explain the specific project that you're going to be using your funds for, so that there can be that accountability and transparency. So we know that there are 4,000 plus projects already receiving SB1 funds, and those funds are flowing to 479 cities in all 58 counties. A group called the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, they tried to calculate the economic benefit of SB1 over the first 10 years. I mentioned there was $52 billion going to be collected over the first 10 years. They estimate that the economic benefit will be $183 billion over the first 10 years due to things like job creation, employment, earnings, economic output, etc. User benefits, their calculation is about $183 billion. So about $3 returned for every $1 raised in SB1 funds. You should know that there are 2 ballot measures that are coming up that are going to affect SB1, and I'll walk you through what they are. And one of them, again, Prop 69, is the subject of the agenda item tonight. So this is going to be on the ballot in June, Prop 69. When SB1 was approved, many of the new and existing revenues were already constitutionally protected and required to be spent on transportation, but there were a few that were not. And so what SB1 does is it extends those constitutional protections to all of the SB1 revenues that aren't currently protected. That is the diesel sales tax and that transportation improvement fee, the fee on registration of motor vehicles. It ensures that these funds can only be used for transportation improvement purposes. It prohibits the legislature from borrowing or diverting these revenues for non-transportation purposes. It makes and it also includes an exemption from the state appropriations limit, also known as the GAN limit. So, and that is explained in your staff report as well. I believe that this was included or in the legislative package, SB1, at the request of some of the legislators who just wanted to make sure that, if I vote for this, we're going to actually spend these dollars on transportation, right? They wanted this extra protection included in that final legislative package, that the legislature would put on the ballot a constitutional amendment requiring that, and that's where that's where Prop 69 comes from. It was actually a safeguard that legislators wanted in order for them to vote and get that 2/3 support to go through the legislature.
Could I ask a question? I just was wondering why it wasn't included in the original legislation. I know it's 60-40, right? Am I right? 60% to transportation, 40 it could be borrowed. Did I read that?
In SB1, yeah, it's approximately 40% was left unconstitutionally unprotected.
Why? Yeah, and so it had to be a constitutional. Is that why they didn't? I mean, they could
Yes.
have done they could have said 100%.
They actually wanted it to be a constitutional amendment protecting the other 40%. That's how insistent they were, and that's what it took to get their vote. I'll vote for this, but I want constitutional protections that this is actually going to go to transportation. Okay. The other ballot measure is potential repeal of SB1, what we've just been talking about here. And that would go on the November 2018 ballot. This proposition would require state voter approval of new funds retroactive to January 2017. For all intents and purposes, this is a repeal of SB1 because that was enacted in April of 2017. It was deliberately worded this way to be a repeal of SB1. So it would repeal SB1, and the $5.2 billion of revenues that are being collected annually would stop and would go away, unless this were put on the ballot and voted on and approved by voters as a proposition. Because this is an initiative, collection of signatures is required. My understanding is that 950,000 signatures have been collected to put this on the ballot. They are yet to be validated, but it appears that they will have more than the 581,000 signatures they need to put this on the fall ballot. The group that is the proponents of this repeal of SB1 include the California Republican Party, John Cox, who I think is a gubernatorial candidate, Kevin McCarthy from the south end of the San Joaquin Valley, a congressman, Mimi Walters is running for governor, and the Congressional Republican Committee, the National Congressional Republican Committee are major funders. And one of the major proponents is a radio host down in the San Diego area. Those that want to repeal SB1 and are behind the signature gathering and the ballot initiative, these are the things that they are saying. This is right off of their website, which they title Facts About SB1. In fact, the legislature allows these new higher gas and car taxes to be spent on bike lanes, but not on new roads or highways. This doesn't necessarily mean they're all true. That's actually not accurate. The legislature prohibits the new higher gas and car taxes from being spent on increasing capacity. Californians now pay the highest gas prices in the nation. Many Californians are paying close to $2 a gallon extra because of taxes and fees, etc. Again, many groups have fact-checked this and have major issues with what is on this.
So a question I have for you, are these facts or are these claims?
These are claims. They call them facts on their website.
But
which
they're
is
actually
called,
claims, they're not facts.
Yeah, it's called Give Voters a Voice. This is a cutout and posted onto the PowerPoint for you. I didn't retype this.
Okay.
This is actually a snip from their website that I put onto the PowerPoint slide, so you can see how they're characterizing what is on, what their concerns are. This is actually from their website, just the way they've written it. There's a broad coalition that is opposed to the repeal. They're opposing the repeal of SB1 as well as supporting Prop 69. And here are their various logos: the League of Cities, the California State Association of Counties, CalCog, the California Association of Councils of Governments, etc. They are as equally organized as the repeal group, those coalition members say, and this is information from their various websites. In this case, I've tried to summarize it for you because they all have information on their respective websites taking issue with the repeal of SB1. They say repealing SB1 jeopardizes public safety, that poor roadways are a factor in over 50% of the fatalities on California roads. It halts roadway improvements that are intended to save lives. It stops projects in every community. Stops improvements in congestion relief. That would go to the congested corridors and trade corridors programs. It would actually cost drivers more in the long run to repeal SB1 because the driver spends $739 a year on car repairs due to bad roads as compared to the approximately $120 a year that they would be paying extra because of SB1. Maintaining roads costs 8 times less than fixing roads, and it would hurt job creation and ultimately our economy. So they say that SB1 creates or sustains 68,000 jobs per year, 77% of which are outside the construction industry. Those are the proponents, what the proponents are saying, or they in the coalition. The recommendation tonight is specifically on Proposition 69, which is on the June ballot, the constitutional protection of the other 40% of the funds. So the recommendation is to consider adopting Resolution 1822 in support of Prop 69, the Transportation Taxes and Fees Lockbox and Appropriations Limit Exemption Amendment. And you have the Legislative Analyst's Office summary of Prop 69 attached to your staff report. And with that, I'll stop. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But we just wanted you to have that background.
Thank you. Council questions? Councilmember Immunities?
I'm curious,
The web is not.
when
right.
SB1 first came out,
I don't have
the discussion was that the RIM fees that we're collecting would not qualify as a road tax. Did I just understand
have
what
item
you're
6?
saying to the contrary?
Yes, your RIM fees are eligible as an imposed fee. What the county would need to do is it would need to submit documentation to the state showing that the fee was passed by the county board of supervisors, maybe a resolution or ordinance or whatever. You turn that into the state, you become eligible, and then when they have calls for projects, you can apply for a match on those projects that are going to be receiving RIM fees.
Okay. And then another question, on the increases based on the CPI, is there a cap anywhere for that? The sales and excise tax increases on gasoline and diesel starting in 2019.
Is there a cap so that can?
It's supposedly it goes up annually based
Yes.
on the CPI.
I think it
Is there a cap on the CPI is my question.
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I would have to look into that. I'm sorry. I don't believe so, but I have to look.
Thank you.
Further council comment?
On the local partnership program, you're saying that the RIM fee, we have a potential match on that. Is there any other funding sources that are considered for the match?
The local partnership program is the program where you would get a direct match on the RIM fee or the City of Angels impact fee program. By having impact fee monies, if you put it into another project and then submit it, say like active transportation program, if you show that you're willing to spend your own impact fee monies on a bicycle or pedestrian project, it actually is attractive to the state, showing a local commitment. So it probably improves your score when that project is graded. So it's not a direct one-to-one match per se, but it's an indication that you're willing to commit your own monies to a project, and it improves your score during these calls for project process.
He's not getting that.
I don't have information on Prop 69. I haven't seen it. I would like to read it. I'd like to understand more about what this presentation is. The packet I have does not include it. So I'm going to abstain from this if it comes to a vote because I don't have the information I need to make proper judgment on it. I see the basis on what you're presenting to me here. But I'm not sure what else is contained in that, and I'm not sure has it passed onto the ballot, so the verbiage that's going to be on the ballot is already
Locked down.
presented.
Yeah, it's a June 2018 item,
Yeah.
and as mail-in ballots
We're
can
asking
start,
us to support it.
you're going to abstain.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain because
Okay.
I mean, I understand where you're saying and what you're talking about, but the agenda that I had didn't even have this on it, that was sent to me, didn't even have items decided on it, so.
Well, we still have 6 council members. I'm hoping to have the opportunity to take a look at the agenda item. It sounds like several did.
I favor.
I asked this to be brought before our council because the June election
You have it.
opens to mail-in ballots this month. And so as a position statement from us as a regional transportation agency, I think it's important that we listen to and respect what has been presented to the California electorate and those affiliated entities that were involved with the Council of Governments for the California Council of Governments. And as your board chair, I attended that board meeting where the California Council of Governments approved support of this proposition. And it's exactly what we were talking about here. We want to protect that 40% from being legislatively moved somewhere else. This is money that was always been made to support transportation issues. We want to keep it that way. That's what this proposition does. And so as a statement from our board, it was recommended that we go ahead and issue a statement saying we support Proposition 69 as the Council of Governments for Calaveras County. That's what we're asking.
Yeah. And I favor this because historically there has been a lot of money that was taken from transportation and put into other things. And that made me very leery about voting for it in the first place. And so I think this is essential.
Director Mills.
Thank you. So the legislature ultimately cannot make a constitutional amendment, and it's that is a simple statement that has to be the vote of the people. I wish that when the lottery had come out that they would have done the same thing. We also have basin fees in two areas, Valley Springs and Copperopolis, and those also would apply to the same scenario. So, yeah, I actually took the time to read Prop 69 on their website. So I'm comfortable with what they're trying to do here. Whether SB1 passes or fails in November is not the issue.
Right.
The issue is, are we going to ensure, like Ms. Herman says, we're going to ensure that 40% is locked away, and that we keep our track full and complete with every dollar that we're getting in here, and it doesn't go somewhere else. So I would support the measure.
Further council comment? Do we have any public comment? Mr. Colwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to mention, and I'm sure Councilmember Toffenelli is aware of this, that the fees and the taxes go in regardless of Prop 69.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so if you're concerned
It's not a
about
repeal of it at all.
voting for
I understand.
taxes and fees, you can vote for the repeal in November.
That's not my concern, Mr. Caldwell. My concern is, I'd like to read what I'm voting on, and I haven't had a chance to do that because what I was sent was not included in it.
There was a federal bill, about 6 or 7 years ago during the Obama administration that provided a lot of money for transportation, $3 billion to the state of California. And CSAC had a get-together, a little meeting up in Sacramento. Since I'm a life member of the County Engineers Association, I was invited. And I went to the meeting, and Caltrans appeared, and they said, keep in mind that this money is going to come to California. Probably it'll be confirmed in March or April of next year. This was October of the previous year. And so what they're advising everybody to do is to think about projects. And I would advise that here, that you've got $5 billion a year coming to transportation, or at least we hope it's going to be coming to transportation. And you need to think about projects because there will be a deadline, just like there was on the federal money, to submit projects. And believe it or not, there were some cities and counties who failed to meet the deadline, even though they were offered money. And so they lost out on that. And I'm encouraging you who represent the two agencies here to make sure that your agency does have projects that they could submit for the expenditure of the SB1 money, because you hate to have the legislature give you this money and then you fail to use it, because everybody complains about how bad their roads are and so forth. And with respect to the constitutionally protecting the 40%, one of the things I hear or heard, not so much recently, but in the past, was that there would be transportation monies available, and I would hear from people that, oh, well, they've loaned that to such and such a department and within the state. And I assume that if it's not, the 40% is not constitutionally protected, I'm assuming it's going to go to Governor Brown's rainy day fund, which now has, I'm told, over $3 billion in it presently. And that's good. He's cutting back and saving some money, but he certainly won't need another $1 billion or $1.5 billion, whatever it is, for his rainy day fund, because it's going to be distributed. Eventually, it'll be distributed to other departments. And the thing that I noticed in particular was the fact that these fees and these taxes are going to be imposed anyway. And one of the things that's a common denominator of all of these is cars or trucks. That DMV, diesel, fuel, regular gasoline, all of that is generated because of vehicles on the road. And there's nowhere more appropriate than spending it on the roads that these people travel, these vehicles travel. So I think it's appropriate that they be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would encourage you to vote yes on supporting Prop 69. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment? Is there any further council comment?
I have not read the proposition either. And I think the concern that Gary has is that the concept's wonderful and we agree, but without reading the language, making sure there's not something in there to come back to bite us.
Okay. Well, the request is to approve a resolution as a council to support Prop 69. Do we have a motion to do so?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Herman,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Mills. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those abstaining?
Same.
Abstaining noes. Approved 5-0-2. Thank you. Item number 7, the approving of the fiscal year 2017-18 overall work program amendment number 3 and overall work program amendment OWPA with Caltrans. Ms. Raggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'd like to turn to page 68 in the agenda package, you'll be able to see the overall work program worksheet. You'll see the highlighted work elements that show the changes in the proposed amendment number 3. With LTF, you can see 13,200 was added to the grant development work element. That was a request from the City of Angels. The original allocation was from the Bike and Head account, and it was allocated to their Murphy's Grade Road project. They requested it be taken off that project and added to this grant development work element in hopes of putting together an ATP application. If you look under the RSTP column, there was 5,000 taken from work element 3 and 6 and added to 16, which is the Murphy's SR4 complete streets. This will be for the EIR document. We're working with the county planning department on this project. If you look under the RPA column, this is where we have deleted the goods and movement plan, and we have reallocated that funding to work element 7, which is the grants development, and work element 11, transit planning. But I wanted to reassure the council, in the draft that was approved, we have identified the goods and move project. Goods and movement
Goods
plan.
movement.
Goods and, sorry. So that is approved in the 18-19 draft with the original dollar amount of 30,000. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council?
Only to the point, because it's on this agenda item, is the Technical Advisory Committee, with the City of Angels not having a planning director at this point, does that play at all in?
Melissa Eads has been attending. And
She's been doing it on behalf of the
she's
city?
voting member, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further council comment? Do we have any public comment?
Well, yeah,
I'm
I just wanted to mention again that on our the background, we failed to include Amador County again on this regional setting aspect of it.
Yeah, we may have,
In the narrative?
yeah, I think in the narrative, as surrounding counties. And we may have addressed that in the 18-19 work element, so apologies, that wasn't revised here.
further council comment? Any public comment? Mr. Tofinelli, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. I think it's just a typo, but if you look on page 52, where the resolution itself is, where it says, now therefore be it resolved, yada, 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 it says amendment number 2. I think that should be amendment number 3.
Yes, you are correct. We'll correct that. Thank you.
Well, we can correct that in the motion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Good eye, Gary.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the overall work program amendment as noted?
I will move this item, Mr. Chair, with the noted
Correction.
correction to number 3 overall.
Moved by Councilmember Tofinelli,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Munides. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Item number 8 is accepting the Regional Surface Transportation Program, RSTP updated agreements with the City of Angels and Calaveras County for the fiscal year 2018-19 through 2022-23 call for projects. Ms. Raggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These RSTP agreements were worked on through the Technical Advisory Committee when we had our last call for projects. The county approved theirs in November of 2016. With the new call for projects approved, these new agreements identify the newly awarded RSTP funding and includes the timely use of funds. These agreements went through the Technical Advisory Committee, and we're asking the council to accept them. We'll send these on to the city and county for their legal counsel and signature, and then we'll put them on the CIP. Is there any questions?
Questions by the council? Any public comment? Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to refer the council to page 129. And as I always point out in these charts, you will see a lot of zeros there. I think I counted up 15 of them on the far right, where it says invoice date, which I assume means nothing's been done.
Gary, we're not on that item yet.
That's item number 9.
We're still on item number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No
I
worries.
jumped ahead. I beg your pardon.
It's okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Oh. Yeah.
Any further council comment? Do we have a
So moved.
move to approve the minute order accepting the Regional Surface Transportation Program? Moved by Councilmember Munides,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Catalano. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Item number 9, the county report.
Jeff Grovitz, Public Works, not much to report, other than we have 2 RFPs in advertisement for the execution of the next milestone phases of Wagon Trail. Those will be opened later in the month and hopefully awarded in June or early July. Any questions on any other projects?
Council? I believe,
It's okay, you're going to be bringing stuff back for
I
us.
believe we had a public comment on item number 9 that was being wished to be brought forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll get it right eventually. Back to the 0% on the far right column of that chart on page 129. if you were to look at the amount of monies that have been programmed and then not yet encumbered in any way, on that page alone, it's over $10 million. And if you go to the next page, 130, under transit, it's $104,000 at 0%. And on 131, it's City of Angels, $1,452,000, represented by zeros. And I'll say it again, I've said it many times, if these agencies are not getting these projects done, then take the money away, withdraw it from them, and give it to somebody who can get the job done. This money is just sitting there. It's a total of $12 million, over $12 million. I don't know what it takes to get some action, but you need to do something. Thank you.
I think just a notation on that, some of these projects are programmed in future years, so some of that $12 million is not yet
One
appropriated.
of them goes back to 910.
Some are older. And my point is only that some of them are also for the future, when you look at projects going into 2022, 2023. Okay, I think that was just a report. Item number 10, the transit report. Mr. Grovitz.
Again, Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. Only thing of note on transit is the new operations contract went into effect in April, and as of May 1st, the fleet and the maintenance thereof the fleet transitioned to the new operator. So that occurred this week. Questions?
Any questions, council? Any public comment on the transit report? On transit report, agenda item number 10.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure I understand what was said earlier on the agenda on a report by the staff. It's, and I don't have the wording right in front of me, but it said something about if you're not in compliance, that is a recipient of FTA monies, you cannot receive FTA monies until you are in compliance and have first spent all of your local monies.
It's the opposite. So in order to use local dollars, like STA funding, in order to receive an allocation of local dollars, STA, you would need to utilize your federal funding first.
Well, I beg your pardon. Okay, so what I'm wondering is the transit system in compliance?
Okay, I want to try and keep us focused on this agenda item.
I beg your pardon?
I want to keep us focused on this agenda item, which is the transit report.
I was asking about transit.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I can
Okay.
just say,
Okay.
when we get to the transit agenda, I can answer more questions when we open the transit agency agenda. These are the capital projects, and I think there was a letter at the beginning of the agenda. The transit agency will be getting these capital projects back, if that answers any of your questions.
Transit agency will do what?
We'll be receiving these transit capital projects and this funding. We'll be managing these projects.
So my question was, are they in compliance?
And you were asking about FTA, and that's an agenda item in the Calaveras transit agenda. That's going to start in about 5 more minutes.
Actually, it was under item 2,
And
under
it's-
discussion.
Yeah, and then it's also under the transit agenda.
I thought he just gave the transit report.
Yep, he was talking about the operations contract. So what is your question? Are they in compliance with FTA?
I asked it twice.
We are COG staff and county staff are working with the FTA liaison under the program to try to bring Calaveras in compliance. They needed to execute their extension, which they have done in March, which then left April, May, and June, made them eligible to be reimbursed. If they did that, they wouldn't be able to be reimbursed for the full $250,000.
Okay, a
So-
succinct answer to my question is no, they're not in compliance.
Yes, they are. But at this time, they wouldn't be able to reach the full 250. So we've come up with a solution, which is in my agenda item.
On the transit board.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. City report. Do we have someone from the City of Angels to do a report?
Where's that AIDS lady? That's what I heard
Oh,
about
she's
the
not
planning.
She's not gonna.
She's not going to be able to make it
Okay.
tonight.
Okay,
There's a
seeing none. Caltrans report.
Good evening, Board. Kevin Schroeder, Caltrans, acting office chief for the next 13 days because we've hired a new office chief. Her name is Georgina, and I want to hopefully not butcher her last name, Ponce, P-O-N-C-E. She has 20 years experience with Caltrans. She started in 1996. Her background is an environmental planner, senior status for the last 13 years. She did do a stint in the governor's office of planning, so hopefully she has a pretty good background coming in. I'm not aware if she's worked in a district in a while, but she's really eager to come in. She's a local in the valley. She lives in Elk Grove, so she'll be attending the meetings. This won't be my duty anymore, but she'll be taking over. I'll probably come one time with her just to introduce her to the board and kind of how it works, but she starts on May 14th. Until then, you still can contact me for any questions on Calaveras or anything else. She's going to need a couple months to transition in and learn how things are done there. So just a heads up, I do have her contact information. We're just not trying to give it out until she actually gets to the district. She's still in our headquarters for the next 2 weeks. I wasn't at the last board meeting. I had Michelle Demetris go and stand in for me, and I heard that there was a concern, which I've taken to our safety division for you, Mr. Mills. I'm not sure if Amber Collins have told you, but we've started a safety study. It'll take 4 to 6 months probably to be done, but it's not like the guardrail at that intersection. I drove up there myself and I looked at it, so I made sure the next day to go and talk to them. If you have any additional information that you want them to look at specifically, an email would probably be best for exactly what we can capture. It's probably 2 months until you need it, so if there's some time you need to go and get some more information, within probably 2 months you need to give me that. And then let's see, I know you guys talked about SB1 tonight. Just a heads up, Caltrans, any staff members really can't speak on SB1. We can't provide really any input, or we can direct you towards our website for SB1, but because it's kind of under the situation of a vote right now, we, as staff members, rank and file, and even seniors kind of have to step back. We can put you in contact with our PIO. They can give you some information there. So when Georgina comes here, she might not be able to answer a lot of SB1 questions. So just preparing that, if you have a lot of questions, let's get those out of the way through an email, and we'll get you the right information. And lastly, hopefully in May, 15th, 18th, we're hopefully trying to hear back about planning grants. I know the COG applied for a couple. That's hopeful. There's a lot going on in headquarters right now. So other than that, I don't have much more to add. If you have any other questions.
Any questions, council?
I'll get you an email.
Okay, you have my contact information.
Thank you. We'll
Thank you.
miss you.
I have one. Highway 4926.
Okay.
We had another accident there just recently, so there's been a span here of the last, I would say, 12 months of a number at that intersection of accidents. I think one was fatal.
Moke Hill?
Yeah, in Moke Hill.
The Moke Hill. We did do a traffic study in December. We are looking at If they have to check, they should have installed warnings for the intersection coming up, but I'll take that into account. Do you know if it was on the Pine, anything press-wise did you hear about? I'm just, so I can feed.
I think it was listed on the Pine Tree.
Okay, Pine Tree. It'll probably be on CHP too. I just want to get that. If it did, we just did a safety study, so just because we just got it done, I don't know the protocol right off the top of my head, but we can be in discussion if you want to send me an email.
I will send you an email.
And we can discuss what we want to go forward with.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, we're actually at that magic 6:30 timeframe. And what I'm saying that for is that we're actually going to, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, recess the COG meeting and open the transit meeting. Okay. So at this time, we are recessing as the Council of Governments. Susan, you can go ahead and stop recording for the moment. And we're going to Council of Governments. And at that point, our council meeting is for staff report. I'm sorry, council reports. Council reports.
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Mills. Susan, did we give you a chance to get going again? Okay. Okay. Councilmember Catalano.
On Mother's Day, the West Point Community Garden will be having its plant sale. I believe the proceeds go to the Blue Mountain Coalition for Youth and Families.
Well, I have something to report. May 17th starts the fair, and we just discussed bus riding. Please check the county website and hopefully the COG website for all of the times and places for that bus run to the fair. Also, I was having a discussion with Amanda, and I believe Amanda and my frog jumping face-off is scheduled for 2 o'clock on Sunday. So please be there at 2 o'clock Sunday. I believe the city police chief and the sheriff has a face-off at that time also. So I'm looking forward to that. And I reserve the right to look at your frog before you jump it and verify that it meets the requirements. And it may have some lead in it, I'm not sure.
Just use a cattle prod,
Check your
Amanda.
frog out.
Just get a cattle prod from Spence's.
That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councilman Totally. Ms. Zimmerman.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Nothing to report here. Staff reports.
As usual, I provided a staff report with updates on various projects. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I have nothing else to add to that. I believe Melissa has an update.
Thank you. I just wanted to update the council. We've been working with the outside bookkeeper. We are on track for 1718 transactions to be completed, and we'll submit that to Richardson and Company and hopefully leave adjustments. I think we'll be looking to renew the contract for 1819. The transit audit also recognizes adjustments, and since the CTA will be with COG, we'll probably have the outside bookkeeper go through those transactions and alleviate those adjustments. If this council has any questions.
That's good news to hear that that's on track again. I'm sure Richardson and Company are happy to hear that too.
And Robert Merritt said if the council wanted an update from him, he does a lot of special districts, he does fire districts, water districts, and a lot of these districts are having issues with, the county GLs. They don't put together a GL that shows the transactions that are needed to accommodate these audits. So this is very familiar to him.
So are you asking whether or not the board would be interested in hearing from him?
If the council would be interested, I would schedule him for June or.
I'd be interested in it.
I would too, but I won't be available. In
Well-
June, I won't be available. I'm in Southern California.
You're not gonna be at the COG meeting?
No.
Okay. Do you want me
Question,
to-
Melissa?
He can come in August. Robert Merritt.
Yeah. If,
Is August okay?
if there's an issue we need to be made aware of as a board for policy because there's a concern ongoing yet, whether it's the general ledger accounting structure, our outside bookkeeper not meeting the needs of the accountants, I definitely would like to hear from them.
Soon.
If the report is fundamentally, we made the request last year and things are good, I don't know if we really want to call them to come up and tell us everything's okay. I'm just asking the board, I mean, I'd like to know if there's an issue.
I'd like to know if there's any anomalies that might be
Right.
there that would need to be discussed. If not, then there's no necessity.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a very long update. It's just, it's filling a gap. An outside bookkeeper is filling the gap. We receive a GL from the county auditor controller. It
Correct.
doesn't suffice what the outside
Right.
auditor needs. So a bookkeeper is a liaison and translates that and gives the outside auditor. So
And
they're
that-
not supposed to cross over. They're auditing. They're not supposed to be crossing over and then doing bookkeeping transactions because it crosses over and is a conflict. So it's a simple, he does it for a lot of, districts. So it's not a big deal. I don't think there's an issue or there would warrant any policy change.
Is the person you're asking to come to us the bookkeeper or the accountant?
But the bookkeeper.
The bookkeeper, okay, thank you.
No, Brian has made it perfectly clear during his presentations that we need a bookkeeper.
Okay.
He doesn't want
Yes, and I think that was part of his report a couple years in
Right.
a row, that
We needed that.
we
Yeah.
needed that because of this situation.
Yeah, and now that transit is now gonna have, under the CTA, we would employ him because we had the same adjustments while it was at the county.
Well, is it a line item issue?
It's the way the county auditor, and what Robert has explained to me, all county auditors, like all county agencies are dealing with the same issue.
Mhm.
That's why he has so many clients. Outside auditors want the GL in a certain fashion. The county auditor does not provide that.
Yeah. Okay. I do have one item though on your report here.
Well, back to, real quick for Melissa's, is that still the request to bring it back in August? Did I hear that?
I think they
Oh,
were, if it wasn't an
okay.
issue, to not bring it back.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Central Sierra Zero Emissions Vehicles Readiness Plan.
Mhm.
I just read that and are you aware that the state of California and 17 other states are suing the EPA for their rollback of emissions?
Standards, yeah.
Yes, and so I don't know if this was electric vehicles, I'm sure, this plan, but I don't know if any of that conversation would be in this as to whether the EPA is going to be effective in rolling back the emission standards going forward, so.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I know, this is just getting initiated and it's led by Tuolumne County Transportation Commission. But really the purpose, I think, is identifying sites for zero emission plug-in vehicle locations. So, I'm not sure if that would have an impact, but we'll look into that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because we're still looking at actually having a charging station at the Calaveras Visitor Center in Angels County.
Yes, that's a project for Angels.
Okay. I believe that now concludes our staff reports. Item number 15 is adjournment of the Council of Governments meeting. Our next meeting is June 6th at 5:30 here in these chambers. Thank you.